All right, this is Chad in sunny California. Today we're going to do a spark plug change on my 2014 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk with a 6-cylinder engine. This has been a great car, has about 75,000 miles on it. What's happened with the Cherokee is the engine light came on. Took it over to CarQuest Auto Parts store. They plugged in their engine sensor to see what was going on, and they got a code indicating that cylinder 1 was misfiring. They believe that we should try spark plugs first, and if not that, then an engine coil. So we're going to do the spark plug work today, and spark plugs are cheaper to do, and then if that doesn't work, we'll get into the engine coil later. So here are the tools we're going to need for this job. First off, we've got the spark plugs. I've got the Iridium Long Life I picked up at CarQuest. Those are $14 each, and of course need 6 of them for this 6-cylinder. You can go with the regular that are about $8 each. I was reading that Iridium is a little bit longer life and might be a little bit better spark, but I'm not sure there's much of a difference. Okay, we have 2 wrenches here. This is a 1/2 inch and this is a 13 millimeter. There's a bolt in here that I think is supposed to be 1/2 inch, but this 1/2 inch would not fit for me. So I went with the 13 millimeter, which worked great. The larger English size, 9/16, that didn't work either. So 13 millimeter worked best for me. I had the my spark plug socket here, fairly long one. It's pretty deep in there, so you're gonna need a long one or an extender. I've got my 3/8 inch ratchet and extender here. And then I've got, this is a long 10 millimeter and then a short 10 millimeter and a short 8 millimeter. And then down here, I've got rigged up 5/16. I didn't have an 8 millimeter in a 1/4 inch size. There's a part of this that requires getting some bolts out in a very narrow area. And even if I would have had the 8 millimeter in this longer socket, this 3/8 inch socket, I think it's too wide to get down in there. So if you have a longer 8 millimeter in a 1/4 inch socket, that worked. Anyways, I had this 5/16. I put some blue tape in. I had this long thing here, and that allowed me to get down into those deep 8 millimeter bolts and get those out. And the drill might be a little useful for, there's 7 of those 8 millimeter bolts that need to come out, and the drill might speed you up on that. So that's the tools we need for the job, and so we'll go from there. Okay, so we popped the hood on the Jeep Cherokee now. We'll go over here and take a look at this. Here we see the engine cover, a 3.2 liter engine. These are very easy to pop up. Just at each corner you can just pop like this, and this is the easiest part of the job. Up here, and boom, this is ready to come off, and you can set that aside. So now we're looking at the upper air intake here. Okay, so in starting this job, we're ready to start going after these 4 hoses. We've got to get those detached, and the first one's going to be this PCV hose here, going over to here. It has these connectors here. Those just pull back, no problem with those. A little trickier over here. This one here, we can see that I broke mine plastic piece getting it out. I don't know the exact trick for getting those out without breaking them, but this white plastic piece comes out. Here are the 2 pieces of it. Once it's out, then you can pull back easily on this hose, and then it comes out, and then you can just rest this hose to the front here. That's all you need to do with that. That'll be out of the way, and that'll take care of the PCV hose. Attach it here. Right here, this is just going to lift up, and then we've got a little piece down here, and this is going to come up this direction as well. So if we come over here first and we get this, we can just pop that off. This is the second time I took it off. It's a little easier. The first time it was a little tighter. This over here just lifts out. It's just resting on that there. And over here then, this can just lift up like so. That seems to come out pretty easily. And then you can move this whole hose assembly out of the way a little bit. This is still connected up here. We'll get to that. Okay, so that's that second hose. Okay, so after we get this hose assembly off here, as we saw before, we're gonna go over here to the driver's side of the engine towards the back, and we need now to get this hose here off. You can see it's right behind this little white piece. It's right here. Now, I had a hard time with it the first time, so I just used a screwdriver to just push back on it a little bit as I was taking it off, and this seemed to help get it off. It's a little bit, I think, looser now, and then it should be able to pull off. There you go. And you can see it's just over this flange here, so it's not too hard to get off. Okay, so now we've got that one off. That wasn't too bad. Okay, the next hose we need to get off is back here. You see, again, we're at this white point here. We see this hose here. Now you see I've already backed it out. Again, it was kind of hard. Look at that blood on there already. I backed it out just using my screwdriver like I did before. Sort of getting in there and pushing it back. And then once I did that back far enough, I could get that to pop off. So now that hose is now detached. We can go to the next hoses. We now have 4 electrical connectors that we need to get off. We come around here. We're gonna see one of them is right here. And one is right here. And one is here. And one is back in the back here. Back here. Okay, so we got to detach these 4. And these 4 are sometimes a little bit of a pain. They've got a little red tab, a couple of them do. This red tab, I pushed that down and I moved it back with my screwdriver like that. And it just came back just a little bit, maybe a millimeter or 2. And then once I did that, then it just came right out. So it was fine there. We come over to this one in the middle. Where are we at here? Okay, no, this one to the far side. So this one doesn't have a red thing on it. It's got a black thing, and I got this off once just by, oh yeah, on this one here, I lifted up with my screwdriver back here, popped that up, and then once I popped that up like that, I was able to detach it. I think I got it out. There we go. That one comes out. Then we come around and we've got these wires here coming in. Again, there's a little red piece right there, and I got my screwdriver in there and I pushed that back, and then able to get that wire off there. And then that brought us to the one in back with that little orange mark, at least on mine. And that one popped out when I got my screwdriver down there and pushed on this black thing there. So those 4, they're all different, so you don't need to worry about confusing them or really keeping track of them that much, because they're going to only fit into the slots that they came out of. Okay, so now we've got those 4 electrical wires popped off, and we're getting closer now. Okay, we've done the 4 hoses, the 4 electrical, and now we're ready to work on this air filter hoses that need to come off. So you're going to see the little bolt here comes off here, and in the back there's one here. I'll loosen those up to get this out, and then there is one clear to the back down here. So we're going to loosen those 3 up. And then we should be able, down here you see something, looks like a bolt, but it's just a pop off like we had on the engine cover. And there's one in the back here that's gonna pull out. So we're gonna loosen those up and get those ready to take this and get this out of our way, which should expose the back 3 of the spark plugs at that point, but we'll keep going until we get all 6 exposed for doing the whole job. So here we go. We're just going to use a screwdriver, and we're just going to, you can see, we're just going to loosen this one up, and then come over here, loosen this one up here for us, get that loose, and then we're going to come to the back one, which is down here, find it. Okay, There we go. And then loosen that one up a little bit. And then we'll come back and see if I can get this pulled out of here. Once I do that, okay, so I've loosened these screws up a little bit more here and here. And you can see the separation I'm getting there. And that's coming off there. And I mentioned loosening this one off. I'm not sure I have to get this whole thing out of here, but see that? Come on. Coming. There we go. Okay, this should get a lot of stuff out of the way. There we go. Okay, and that's still now hooked on back here, but I was able to free it up and just push it over, not even try and get that one off, just leave it there like that. And then I guess we're going to try and loosen it up back here and then pull this up here, and then from the back, pull it back that way and see if we can get it out here. We'll see how this works here. A little bit of progress on getting this air plenum off in the back here. I reached behind here, kind of used my screwdriver to lever this up. The back part seemed to pop up fine. On the front part, it seems like I was trying to pull up instead of back or something. You can see I've broken a little plastic piece. I don't think that'll be a big deal, but we'll see. And I think this part was supposed to pop up more. Maybe not. Maybe it's just supposed to slide back there. And once those are free, whether you get them off normally like you're supposed to or break them off like I did, then with this part being loosened back here with that screw, then you can pull this in this direction, sort of freeing it up. But you got to be careful, this wire is still attached here. I was trying to loosen it. Didn't want to seem to come out very well, so I'm going to leave it there for a minute and see if I can get things out of the way with it leaving there. Otherwise, I might have to try and pop that off. So I'm going to try and pull this off completely now and get more of this off. And now that it's off, we can see here, this is the piece here, was connecting onto here with this tightener. So that came off fine. And then in the back, we can see this is the pop-up thing that popped up fine off of the bottom right here. That was fine. But down here, you can see that part that I kind of broke by pulling up on it instead of pushing back on it, pushing back towards the firewall. I think would allow that to come off without breaking that piece. But anyways, I've now got it off, and we can see in the back the three ignition coils, I think that's what those are called, going down to where we're going to get to those back three spark plugs. But I'm going to go ahead and take off this front piece and do all the spark plugs at the same time. But that at least shows us how three of those spark plugs are in the back there. And now we'll work on, we're going to come around to the front, and we're going to take this thing off next. Okay, here we go. Got the air plenum off and back. Now we've got to work on getting this piece off here. And we're going to start with these 10mm nuts that are down here. There's one down here by this by the dipstick. I think that's the engine oil dipstick, but in front here, the front of the car, you can see this one here. You come over here, you can see another one down here. Both of these I think are going to be doable with my 10mm ratchet, just on a socket on a ratchet. And then towards the back, let's see, this thing's a little bit in the way. Okay, we're gonna move that over. Okay, we can see one that's back here, again from this white point here, that electrical piece. We can see one that's here and one that's underneath that hose that we've detached. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're gonna take those off. Okay, now as I mentioned earlier, the tricky part of this job is down here with this bolt. We've got, again, the two 10-inch or 10mm nuts. Get those off there. Down on this bolt, this is my 13mm wrench, and I now have it down on the bolt that's down below on this bracket. And I've got enough room. I can turn this counterclockwise and begin to loosen it fine. So keep doing that until it comes all the way loose, and then pull back on that to get it separated, to get this bracket separate. Again, if by loosening it, you can get the bracket off of here and here, then fine, just loosen it. In my case, I had to totally I had to get this all the way out. It doesn't feel like it's out because it's being pushed by this back in that direction. So you've got to get it loose. You'll feel it kind of click when it's out, and then you've got to pull back on it to get the bracket moving at the bottom in that direction, away from the engine, and then slightly move that bolt once it's out up just a couple millimeters, which will allow this to come free and this to come free. And if you do that, then you're once that's done, that's the hard part of the job. Getting this bracket, once it's off, once it's slid back past here and past here, and you can just rest it down there and it's out of your way, and that'll allow you then to take off the whole upper intake once all the other stuff is disconnected there. Okay, for this next part, I'm standing up on the bumper right now to take off this upper air intake here. And with the work we've done in the back already, back around here and those other nuts, we're now ready to get this off. And we have to take out 7 8mm nuts that I'll show you down here. So on this side of it, passenger side, there's one right here, and there's one in back. So this one and this one here, those two come to this section here. We've got one back here, we see, and one down in there that I'll use a little extender. I don't know if we can see here. You can see another one right there, the top one, and another one deep down in there, and then the last one is down here. So we're just taking these, setting those up there. It's hard to tell with the camera what's going on here. There we go, counterclockwise. Okay, loosening that one up there, and I'll work later to get that all the way out, and then I'll go to the back one and get this back one done here, and I'll loosen all that, and I'll go ahead and take that out, and then I'll get to the next two over there. So you can see this is ready to come out, hand loose, and to give you an idea how far down in there they go. They're about that long. So each of these 7 will work on getting out that way. Okay, here we are. No problem getting these 2 8mm out. The one in backs, I think, are going to be easy. Every job seems to have its pain in the butt thing. So down in here, down deep in here, are 2 more 8mm. This one over here and this one over here. And these are deep, so I ratchet. I was using this, but this wouldn't get with this extender. It won't fit down into there. This is actually a 5/16 that I used to go down in there. That loosened it up fine, but you'll see that blue tape on there. Once I got it loose, I couldn't get it out, so I just jammed some blue tape down into the socket, stuck it down over the bolt, and then that allowed me to pull it on out of there. I'm sure there's other mechanics who have better tricks than that, but that seemed to work for me for getting this one out. I'm going to try it now on the next one that's kind of deep. But if you start this job, make sure you have some tool that will reach down in there to get those deep 8mm bolts out. Otherwise you could end up stuck without the right tool. This thing here, if I push it back, and now I should be able to lift it up here, and then we can expose the front 3 spark plug places, and then there's the fuel. The fuel goes in there, and another fellow suggested that we get that covered with a piece of cardboard so nothing drops in there. So that's what I'm going to do. And you can see here too, this foam piece lifts right off here, and that's going to give us access down here to these bolts to get these out of here till we can get to our spark plugs now. Okay, you can see here I placed a piece of cardboard over there, over the fuel intakes, I think they're called. Okay, so I've loosened up the ignition coil with the 10mm socket, and then this is going to pull out, hopefully. What's going on down there? Yeah, and then down in there, deep down in there, is our spark plug. So hopefully I can get that with this piece over here. This is a flexible one. Get down in there and see if that spark plugs out, and hopefully it hasn't seized up. And then for the new ones, I have some anti-seizing lubricant that I'll put on that I'll show you in a minute, but let's see if we can get this down in here like that. Ooh, looks like it's just deep enough. And I'll get my ratchet on there and we'll give this a go for getting this out. We can just do this here, right here. From the camera. So it was a little stiff in the beginning, but now it seems to be coming out fine. So I'll get this out and I'll go after these two, and then I'll get to the back there. Okay, so this did the job. We got the spark plug out now, and then we're just going to put the spark plug back in there. A little bit corroded. As we can see, we'll get the new spark plug. So over here I have my 6 spark plugs laid out, the new ones, and then here we have the just a little pouch of anti-seize lubricant that I'm going to open up and put down here on the threads, not down on the ignition part, but just on the threads, so that 4 years from now when I have to do this again, hopefully these won't seize up or create difficulty. Okay, so the other 2 front spark plugs came out fine, so now I've got the silicone or the anti-seizing lubricant on here. Okay, once the spark plugs are down in there, we can just replace these ignition coils. It's got these long kind of tubes on them. Let's get those down in there and push that straight down in there, and then just tighten this up with your 10mm there. And then I think I got the other one lying over here. Just bring that in here. It's kind of flexible. Push that down in there. Just finger tight there. And then you got your 10mm here. So go ahead and tighten up those two and we'll go for the back. Okay, here we can see the back 3 spark plugs that I've exposed. I've already replaced those just like the front ones, getting ready to the ignition coils are in there, but I've got to get those bolts down in, and then those will be done, and all the spark plugs will be in, and then we can start putting this thing back together. Okay, we're putting it back together now. You see this foam piece? The bigger section is in the back, I think. The smaller section seems to fit nicely there. It just lies on top, and then we can work on getting the air intake back on here. Okay, I was able to get the air intake on the front part. Okay, I just slid it down into the brackets here, sliding this forward into these 2 brackets. And now we'll come around here to the back. See how my lighting does here. There we go. Okay, now we're at the back and we're working on this, getting this bracket on. It looks okay. So after wrestling for this for a while, this bolt that we loosened up down here on this bracket, let me pan back to the bracket. This bracket we're working on. In order to get this bracket on and off properly, that bolt down here has to slide out all the way, at least on this 2014. And then that seems to allow this piece up here to get back on, as well as the part that's well down there a little bit right there. That part, that's easier, that part, but it's over here, this piece here. In order to get that on and off, that bolt way down in there has to come all the way out. Then you can slide it up a little bit, and then you can get this back bracket on, and I think the whole thing's going to go back together. Earlier I tried to just loosen it, and that made it very difficult to get this bracket on and off. That bolt has to come, I think, all the way out and pulled up. And it's not easy. There's a bunch of wires down there, but it does come out with a lot of tugging once you get it loosened up. Okay, so here we are to talk about the completion of the job. I didn't have a chance to video putting everything back together. But once the spark plugs are in, you're going to insert the ignition coils back in there and use your sockets to tighten the ignition coils down on. Then you can get your upper intake, or you're going to put this foam piece over here back on top of the front area, the front 3 ignition coils and spark plugs. That's just going to rest on there, and then you can put your air intake back on by sliding it into here and then reattaching those, and then by getting this bracket back here back on and then reattaching those and then tightening the bolt that is down there, that 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter bolt, whatever it is, tightening that up, and then that will get this back on. And you can reconnect the 4 hoses, this one here, this one here, this one here, and then I haven't reconnected the PVC hose yet, but we can do that. Okay, and then reattaching the PCV hose here, come to this end, and push that on there like that. Okay, then you can come back to these clips and just get this above here like that, and then just push that on there, push that on there. So that's fine. And then you can take your white piece, which in your case hopefully is still in one piece, and push it down into these holes here like that. And then if you have a broken one like I do, bring this piece over here, push it down in there, and there we go. That's good. I think that's good even though it's broken. Okay, so they're getting the 4 hoses, and then the 4 electrical, you're just going to attach that one there, this one here, and that's just a piece to hold this one here, and this electrical one in here. And then of course this hose came back together by putting this on here, sliding this just slides down, and then this just pops back in there. The plenum was put back together by pushing this whole assembly piece back on here, tightening up this back thing here, getting this hose back on, tightening up this one and tightening up this one, and then that did that. And then you can just put your cover back on. It's got the 4 things here, 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 and back here. For getting that on, just put that cover back on there. So if you're not trying to videotape this, and if you follow these instructions, hopefully you can get this done in an hour, hour and a half. It's not too bad of a job, save you a fair amount of money versus going to a mechanic or dealership, from what I can tell, and should work. All right, good luck.